Southern Kentucky's great outdoors on ESPN 102.7 FM and 104 The Score in Glasgow. Brought to you by Bowling Green Refrigeration, Heating and Cooling and Renegade Marine and Outdoor Center. With your host, Brian Webb. Also starring John Kirby and Sergeant J.D. Williams from Mohawk Outdoors. Josh Honeycutt from Realtree Outdoors. Also made possible by Swagger Bipods, the Van Store, Bowling Green and Glasgow. Your Can-Am headquarters. J&K Used Cars on the Bypass. United Furniture and Appliance. Our national sponsor, Big & J Long Range Attractants. Segments in part by Rockcastle Shooting Center, The Rock, and Renegade Marine, featuring Realtree's Michael Penley Timber 2 Table Wild Game Recipes. Made possible by Pabst Beef Jerky, fueling your outdoor lifestyle. And all phone interviews via the Linex of Bowling Green hotline. Get ready for all things outdoors. Here's your host, Brian Webb.
I am Southern Kentucky Great Outdoors. I am your spirit of the wild, my brother. God bless America. God bless Kentucky. God bless working hard, playing hard, American families in the asset column. We are blood brothers.
Southern Kentucky Great Outdoors right here live on your radio. Headed home from that place of business, place of work. Who needs it? We don't. We like to hunt and fish all the time. Hopefully you do. If you're listening, that's probably the case. Garrett Browning behind the board. Thanks for getting us livened up there. We're all about half sick. I think half of Bowling Green is. So if we sound a little rough, John, we can throw it up to that. Josh has got more paper towels than I've ever seen in my life.
Call in the Red Cross.
Yeah. like a movie Outbreak. Somebody needs to chase down the... what's that called?
They might lock us in here and quarantine us in here together.
That's exactly
I kind of sound like I'm going through puberty again.
The host. That's what I'm track down the host. We need to find out. But this is your host, Brian Webb, and our co-host, Josh Honeycutt, Realtree Outdoors, and the one and only big man, John Kirby, golfer extraordinaire, hunter, fisherman, outdoorsman, and now writer, which is pretty cool. And radio guy. That's kind of my fault.
Golf extraordinaire. That seems like a couple
Many
of
moves.
lifetimes ago. Yeah, but I appreciate it nonetheless. But
Goodness, dude. You were unbelievable. We had the Lady Tops on last night. They won in Little Rock. That was cool.
awesome. Big win.
Big win, man. They called in on Sports Web. That was fun. So we got to hear from all the girls. I didn't realize he had two girls from England in there, so they get to talking. I was like, "Can you just keep talking?"
Cheerios.
I love listening.
Did you get any Cheerios?
Frank Knobloch.
No.
I have a shameful thing to admit here. The lady on my Google Maps that I use is an Australian.
Oh, I like Australia too. I go either way on that. I mean, English, I like.
Or as John would say, an Aussie. An Aussie.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Aussie.
Yeah, we'll have her running us GPS coordinates to Ohio when we go up there, and it always throws me off when she speaks. It's funny.
I was go ahead.
The whole reason I did that is because my wife's got hers set to a British man, so obviously I had to choose something else too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You got to fight fire with fire.
I want to get Snoop Dogg talking to me.
Oh, that's great, man. Yeah, I wonder who I would get. I don't know. Probably Sean Connery.
There you go.
Or I like, hello and good evening. This is Howard Cosell.
Cosell.
I love Cosell. I'm getting that.
I didn't even have to pinch my nose to sound like that right now.
That's true. You got it naturally.
Yeah.
Penley's on the Linex hotline. Nobody's more natural than him as far as what goes on the table. It's small game, and it's every week. And he's got some dip we talked about last week. I saw a while ago he posted something. Let's get him up. Linex of Bowling Green. Get over there, Roger and Gina, Louisville Road at Porter Pike intersection. They will take care of it. Josh, John, Kirby, pretty important to have your bed liner in if you're hunters, right? I mean, or anything like that.
Yeah, man, that's a no-brainer. Got to protect that investment. And, blood dries, and it can take the paint off. So
there you go, and you couldn't have said it any better. Get over there and check them out. Without further ado, what's up, Penley?
What's going on, guys?
Man, not much. I hope you haven't been there sitting there long.
I'm not sure what this says about me, but I use the Waze app when I'm traveling, and the voice on my app is Cookie Monster.
that's pretty fitting. That's
might be
hilarious.
the soundbite of the century right there. That's great. No, it tells me that you're just as lovable as I thought you were, sir.
When you get to your destination, he always says, "Let's celebrate with cookies."
And how many times do you take him up on it, Finley?
Well, I try to. You know, I don't want to be rude or anything.
That's right. You can't let the guy down. You can't let the Cookie Monster down, man.
That made my day, Finley.
That did
That's
me
great.
too. That was sweet. That was great. I wasn't expecting him to say that. That was great.
As Michael Scott would say, cookie.
We got some talented guys.
That was an office joke for all you guys.
It was a great joke. It was a great movie, great show. Man, I'll tell you, Penley, what have you got? Because I saw that dip. We talked about that last week. Is it another dip?
No, we got a soup this week. This is soup weather, man.
Yeah.
It's raining. It's been raining all day. It's even raining too hard for pot roast to go to the stand. And, you know, if you say that he's not going to deer hunt on the evening of October 30th or whatever it is now, then you know it's really raining because that's when he wants to be out there this week. So, you know, it's soup weather. It's going to be getting cold, and we use our slow cooker pretty often when we're making soups and stuff in the fall and winter. And this is a variation. Everybody's probably had them, but stuffed bell peppers. You know, in the summertime when the bell peppers are coming in the garden really quick, we like to stuff them with venison and a little bit of tomato and some cheese, and we bake those. Well, this is the soup version of that. And we start out with some ground venison, and we always brown it first in a skillet anytime we're making soup or anything. Basically, any kind of meat that we put in a slow cooker, we brown it first in a dry skillet or just a little bit of oil. And, you know, that just adds another layer of flavor to the meat that you can't get by putting it in a slow cooker raw. You really need to kind of get that browned off, nice and caramelized. So we add the ground venison to the slow cooker. We chop up some bell peppers, 2 or 3 pretty good-sized bell peppers, and onion. Dump in a couple cans of fire-roasted tomatoes. And you can get those just about any brand now has got fire-roasted tomatoes, and I use them all the time. I really like that extra little smoky flavor that they get. A couple cans of tomato sauce, a little bit of tomato paste, some garlic, some dried Italian seasoning blend, a little bit of honey. That extra little couple tablespoons of honey gives it a little bit of sweetness. It doesn't make the soup sweet. It just kind of balances those acidy tomatoes a little bit. And we'll let that cook all day long. A little bit of beef broth to get it nice and wet and soupy. And we'll let that cook all day long. Then about, you know, when we come in from work or whatever, we'll take a cup and a half of white rice, dump into there. If we need to add a little bit of liquid to it, we'll add some water to it or some more beef broth at that point. Let it cook for another hour and a half, and that rice will get nice and tender. And then you just serve it up, you know, get you a big bowl full of it because it's all the flavor of the stuffed bell peppers. But it's an easy soup that you can do all day while you're gone, either out hunting or at work. Sprinkle a little bit of shredded cheese over it just before you're ready to serve it. And it's a good soup for a cold, wet day like this.
Garrett wanted to know if Grubhub would deliver that to the studio within the hour.
It'd
like
be
to
a
know,
heck of
too.
a delivery fee, I'm sure.
Yeah, it'd be a nice one. The gas is low though, so
The browning that meat, Michael, that's probably helps keep it together. I mean, I know it adds to the flavor, right? But it also probably helps keep it together so it's not just falling apart and you can't really tell what you're even eating, right?
Yeah. Well, we use ground venison in this, but it does help the texture immensely. You know, if you cook ground venison by putting it in a slow cooker, it just like you say, it gets kind of soft. It gets a little mushy. If you'll go ahead and brown it off in a skillet first before you put it in there. And, you know, if you want to put this together in the morning before you leave for work, brown that venison up to 2 or 3 days in advance. You know, put it in a Tupperware dish or a Ziploc bag, stick it in the fridge. It's ready to go when you're ready to put the soup together. You can put everything else in there in 10 minutes and be out the door and off to the deer stand or work or wherever you got to go that day. So you can do that well in advance. But it really does add to the flavor. It gives you just an extra layer of flavor. And the same if I'm doing a venison roast or a pork roast or anything like that in a slow cooker, I always try to brown it first because it really adds to the flavor.
This is probably another recipe that goes well at deer camp too, right, Michael? I would
It does.
imagine.
It does. In fact, a buddy of mine, we were just talking today. he's got some friends coming up first week of gun season to their deer camp, and they're coming up from South Carolina. And we were just kind of brainstorming some ideas for recipes that he could cook in the slow cooker or pre-cook at home and have it ready to go, so that when everybody came, he's going to want to hunt too. So when everybody comes in, you don't want to spend 2 or 3 hours cooking a big meal. By that time, everybody's ready for bed. You've been up since 2 hours before daylight. And, we brainstormed a bunch of ideas like this soup and chili and just different things that he could pre-cook or cook in the slow cooker all day while they were out at camp or out hunting. So,
hey, let's take a few minutes there before we go. You guys went down to the SOKY, is that right? Did I say that right?
Yep. SOKY, yeah.
I'd kind of like to get, Josh to brag on himself a little bit. He's not good at that, but I want you. Maybe you can.
I'll brag on it for him.
There you go. I was gonna. Thanks for knowing exactly what I was putting down there. Brag on him a little bit, Mike.
Josh won a couple of pretty good awards. He got some video awards, first and second, for 2 different videos, and he was up against some pretty stiff competition in that category. So we were all happy to see that his work was recognized. It was a really good conference. Had a good time. I don't know if you're familiar with Wild Rose Kennels. It's one of the best lab kennels and trainers in the world, really. And their main location, they've got locations all over the country, but their main location is right down there close to Oxford, Mississippi. And got to spend a day out there watching Mike Stewart work with his labs, and that was so impressive. I know that was one of my favorite parts of the entire conference. Well, that and the restaurants. So,
yeah. I saw you found a winner down there.
We did. If anybody's down around Oxford, Mississippi, this is about 10 or 15 minutes out of town in a little community called Taylor, and the restaurant is called Grit. It's been there a few years now. Hands down, it's one of the best meals I've had in years. And it was so good that even with all the good restaurants that were around town there, we ended up eating there 2 nights in a row. So if you're down that way, definitely check that out.
Well, you hit it right on the head. Wild Rose Kennels was a phenomenal facility. And I'm not much of a duck guy, of course, over here John Kirby is. But, I thought my wife's Maltipoo was pretty well trained until I saw those labs. And, it turns out she's not. Sorry if you're listening, Buttercup, but you are not a Wild Rose dog.
That's awesome.
It was probably one of the coolest experiences I've ever had, non-hunting outdoor experiences I've ever had. Just watching those dogs work, watching the trainers handle them, and seeing just how well-behaved they were and how responsive they were to the commands of the hunters. It was pretty impressive.
It was absolutely amazing. I mean, they bought out 7 of their stud dogs. Normally you get that many male dogs together, and it's going to be a little rambunctious. They're going to want to kind of play king of the hill. Man, these dogs sat rock steady the entire time they put on the show. They didn't move unless he called their name.
Wow.
They were throwing out multiple bumpers and sending multiple dogs after them, and the dogs would not move until he called their name. And if he threw out other bumpers while they were on the retrieve, they completely ignored them. He was able to change the direction, make them go pick up a different bumper if he wanted them to. It was almost like they spoke English. It was really amazing.
Using hand signals, too, I'm sure, Michael, on some of those blinds.
Yeah, hand and whistle.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty awesome watching those dogs and a good handler being able to direct a dog to a blind retrieve, which they didn't see, and be able to direct it in there with a whistle and hand motions. It's pretty remarkable to see. I'm sure it was a great time, like you all mentioned.
John, unless I'm not going to get that impressed until they can get one of these dogs to go to the fridge and grab me a Dr. Pepper.
Guarantee you they could do that, no problem.
If anybody could train one too, it would be them.
Yeah.
I was really amazed at what they could do.
At Mickey Penn 70, you can follow him on Twitter. Mickey Penn Eats on Instagram, and right here every week on Southern Kentucky's Great Outdoors, ESPNKentucky.com. You can go to iTunes and check us out. You can hear all of Michael Penley's recipes. And, buddy, we'll catch up with you hopefully next week. All right?
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Good luck in the woods, Michael.
All right.
See you, buddy. Timber to Table. Check them out. Don't go. We're coming right back with the Renegade Marine and Outdoor Center fishing segment, and we're going to have Renegade on because, John, they just fished the big classic down in Barkley, Kentucky Lake, and we're going to find out, get a little recap from John Newton up there.
Nice. Looking forward to hearing how that went.
Absolutely. Come on back. Southern Kentucky's Great Outdoors, ESPN Radio 102.7, 104 The Score.
Okay, I'm on 65 right now. Which exit do I take?
You're going to want to take I-165.
No, I'm on I-65.
No, take I-165. Should be on the sign.
I'm pretty sure that's not a 1 there. I'm pretty sure that's just another I. I-65?
Aye. Well, ahoy, Polloy.
Look, I'm looking at it. I just don't see a 1 there. It's just I-6.
Suffering from post-natural confusion? See Gary Force Paint and Body Shop. iCar Gold Shop, certified with a lifetime warranty. 311 Vanderbilt Drive behind the Scottsville Road Post Office.
In stores now, Pabst Grippo's Beef Jerky. We have taken the great Pabst Beef Jerky and married it with the iconic Grippo's Barbecue Seasoning. This is a marriage made in beef jerky heaven. The thin cut of Pabst Beef Jerky is dusted to perfection with Grippo's seasoning. Once you try it, you will know no other beef jerky compares. So the next time you're headed on a road trip to the lake or your favorite golf course, be sure to have Pabst Beef Jerky fueling your outdoor lifestyle. PabstJerky.com. Ask for us at your local store.
Man, that looks rough. That one got whacked good.
Yeah, I do know I'm getting sick of cleaning it up.
But it's all about the pay in the long run, right?
Yeah, you're right, but it'd be easier the quicker to go out and take us to Linex or Bowling Green.
Well, in the end, it's all about getting those hogs delivered, right?
You're right, but it sure is a mess. Forget about it.
Keep your bed easy to clean with Linex of Bowling Green. Truck accessories and more. Linex of Bowling Green on Louisville Road, Porter Pike intersection.
This is a Morgan & Morgan consumer message.
If you've been in a car crash or suffered an injury, this could be the most important message you'll ever hear. Almost always, the person refusing to pay you is not the person who caused the injury. It's their insurance company, State Farm, Geico, Allstate, and the like. They make billions and billions of dollars by keeping as much money as they can in their own pockets. Big companies with the deepest pockets and an army of lawyers, literally thousands. But at Morgan & Morgan, we too have an army of lawyers. And you know what else? Many of our lawyers came from the same insurance companies we now fight against. If you're injured in a car crash, slip and fall, or the victim of medical malpractice, our army will fight like hell for you. Just dial Pound Law on your cell phone. That's pound 529. Pound Law, that's all. Morgan & Morgan, for the people.
Offices Bowling Green.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
It's time to go fishing with Renegade Marine and Outdoor Center, 415 Commerce Drive, Litchfield, Kentucky, on SOKY's Great Outdoors.
And on the Linex hotline, we got John Newton, Renegade Marine and Outdoor Center. We're going to bring him in. What's up, John Newton?
Not a whole lot, Brian. What are you up to?
Man, we're just having fun talking about the outdoors like we do every Tuesday or every Wednesday, and we love it. And I did want to say this, though. Our boy Kenneth Moore, did he fish the Classic?
No. Kenneth didn't qualify for that.
Oh, okay. Well, he fished something else and got big fish. We just wanted to give a shout-out to fueling your outdoor lifestyle, Pabst Beef Jerky there. So, well, man, I thought I didn't get to read it all. I was in the car, but I shared it. Well, okay, well, let's find out what happened down there in the Renegade Classic, man. First of all, how was the showing? And everybody have a good time? The weather good? Was it rough? Well, tell us all about it.
Weather was actually decent first 2 days. You couldn't ask for better weather. Fish need to be a little bit more cooperative. I mean, to qualify for a 2-day total, took 13:51 to finish in 30th place. 30th place from 30th to 1st, they went to the third day, and on the third day, everybody was reset to 0, and they started from scratch. So it was a knockdown, drag out to see who was going to win that beautiful Nitro Z18 with that 150 Mercury 4-stroke on it. Heckle and Muner, Kevin and Kenny ended up winning with a 3-fish weight of just a little over 11 pounds, but they had probably one of the prettiest smallmouth I've seen in a while, weighed 5.25.
Oh, golly. I tell you what, did he tell you anything about catching that one? Did you get to hear the story behind it?
Those two guys are good fishermen.
Tight lip.
They're not going to tell you how they call it.
I tell you what, man, is that one of the bigger smallies of late that you've heard of? Because that's the biggest one this year I've heard of in a tournament.
Well, believe it or not, in the 3 days that we weighed down there on Kentucky and Barkley, I'm going to say 90% of the fish that come across the scales that I touched, and of course I touch every one of them when they come through, were smallmouth. And we had several smallmouth over 4.5 to that 5 pound range.
No kidding.
What's kind of the reason, John, you think, why was everybody hammering the smallmouth and not catching the big old green fish?
Well, I think a lot of it got to do with the smallmouth. You know, this time of the year are a little bit more active than what largemouth are.
Yeah.
You know, largemouth start to get a little lethargic, but smallmouth like the colder water, so you had cloudy days, a bit of wind blowing across the water, and then, I mean, it's just in their nature.
That's very cool. We all learned something, but that makes perfect sense. What now? The winners of this thing, John. I mean, what did first place take home? A new boat?
Yeah, I took home a new Nitro 2020 Nitro Z18 with one new Mercury 154 stroke on it.
My gosh, I can't imagine how great that would be pulling that thing. Have to
How
call
do you
your wife
split
to bring you truck. Yeah,
how do you split
how do you break that one up?
Yeah. I'd like to be involved in that conversation.
Just hear the conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, there were several. Now, the last day, I'll give these boys credit. The last day that morning, it was raining. I mean, it was like you just pointed out of a boot. And I didn't even take the pontoon out to the breakwall to launch them. I got all 30 of them together in the parking lot, and I said, boys, this is what's going to happen. I said, I'm not going to fight with a pontoon this morning. I said, I'm going to send you all off right here out of Catawba. We're going to go one at a time. You're going to idle out to the breakwall. If you pass the guy in front of you before you pass the breakwall, you're disqualified.
Well, that kept everybody in line.
Yeah.
So I had a line of 30 leaving out of Catawba Marina, and all 30 of them hit, and just me standing there on the dock watching them as they went through the breakwall. I seen 2 boats break to go to Kentucky Lake, and everybody else stayed on Barkley.
Oh,
wow.
So that kind of tells me that most of the fish that were weighed in on that last day come off Barkley.
Yeah. Man, that's very interesting. I would have almost thought the opposite of that.
But, you know, this time of the year, of course, Barkley has probably a little bit better population of smallmouth. And I think the smallmouth were actually up shallower feeding because, you know, we did have cloudy skies. We did have a nice breeze. Temperatures in the morning were in the low 40s. When I say low 40s, I mean tickling that 30-degree mark all 3 days. So, you know, and I think that played a big factor in that smallmouth fight.
Yeah, you're probably right, man. That makes very good sense. Well, congratulations on another successful classic and another great year at Renegade. If somebody's thinking about a Christmas gift, you know, that's coming up, you know, and maybe they just want to get rid of their boat and they want a new dig. Good time to come see John Newton, right?
Oh yeah, we've got a lot of boats out down there. Well, I've actually got one that I don't know why has not sold. It's a 2018 Ranger 519C with a 225 Mercury. It's got 2 HDS 7s on it. It's got the Ultrex. Boat's decked out. Boat list for $66,450, and I have this boat discounted because it needs to find a home other than on my showroom floor. So I've got this boat discounted down to $48,632.
Wow, that's a huge
like
discount.
Sub discount there. I mean, I don't think you'll have that one much longer, John. That price. I know exactly which boat you're talking about, and I would ask the wife, but I'm afraid that I'll be sleeping outside.
Just tell her you're buying it for me.
All right. That's what I'll do. She loves John, so I'll just tell her to get it for John. And you know, I've always got the pop up out there. I can, you know, run me an extension cord out with a heater. I'll be all right.
You still got a spare bedroom at the house.
You got the spare doghouse outside. It ain't gonna hurt nothing.
Hey, word to the young men out there that haven't tied the knot: always have a plan B on where you're going to sleep.
That is the truth. After 27 years with my wife, I've always got a plan B.
Well, you stay toasty warm in this studio here.
Yeah, trust me. If you're ever freezing or close to hypothermia, this studio will bring you back.
Come on in. Yeah,
that's probably why half of us have this chest cold. Hey, listen, John, always a pleasure. We're going to send them your way, buddy. And hey, real quick, local lakes up there, Nolin, Rough River, Barron. Are you hearing much out of it? Or is the crappie bite on? Or
Crappie bite starting. We've got a lot of crappie guys coming in, buying up a lot of stuff. Got a lot of bass fishermen coming in too, buying up small crankbaits, 3 to 4 foot runners, 4 to 10 foot runners. They're chasing the shad. Of course, it's that time of the year. You know, they've got to start getting fat for winter, so they're starting to look for that shad, and they're chasing them down. I would like to give a shout-out, though, to Ted and Donna Milby. We had the Co-Ed Classic the week prior to the Renegade Classic, so USA Bass and Co-Ed was held on Green River Lake. And Ted and Donna Milby sealed the deal there with a 2-day total on Green River Lake. They had 35.68 for 2 days.
Good Lord.
That's 5 fish limit. Their first day bag was all largemouth, probably some of the prettiest largemouth I've ever seen. But their second day bag was all smallmouth, and they had 3 smallmouth that were in that 4.88 to 4.87 range.
Man, how cool is that with your wife to get those 2 sacks like that? I mean, that's awesome. I bet they had a blast. I bet they were elated when they got the trophy.
Oh yeah, they were really tickled to death. And Carl Norris and his wife Jo, they ended up finishing second with just a little over. When I say a little over, I mean just a little over 30 pounds. They had 30.03.
Holy cow, man, that's great stuff. John Newton, Renegade Marine and Outdoor Center, Litchfield, just off the Parkway up there, Commerce Drive. Give them a call. 259. Is it 0001?
That's 259-0001.
That's right off the top of my head, John. I know that number by heart. Man, I appreciate you. Always will. RenegadeMarine.net. If you're home and you got the Bugs Bunny house shoes on and you're in your robe, you can just pop right up on RenegadeMarine.net and just shop the inventory right there. You can't beat that.
Yeah, they can take a look on there. They can find pretty much anything they want. They need to really check on the some of the boats that are on the website. I've got some reduced pricing with prices listed out to the side. That's going to be my bottom dollar on those boats, but I've got several boats listed on there that are way below what you can go anywhere else and buy them at.
Keep a line in the water, brother. We appreciate it. We'll check back with you in a couple of weeks, see what's going on.
Yeah, give me a shout back in a couple of weeks because I've got a couple of tournaments getting ready to happen with USA Bass inside of the Renegade that I run, and I've got a co-ed this weekend at Rough River, and then the following weekend we've got a men's tournament over at Rough River, so I'll be able to give you a little bit better update on what the fish are doing on that lake.
Yeah, that'll be a good time to chat, and we should be seeing a drastic temperature change in the water temp, wouldn't you think? Maybe already.
Well, you're gonna see a drastic temperature change after tomorrow night. I mean, it's they're calling for our first freeze, so that's service announcement to all you people out there that have your inboard motors. This is going to be the first freeze, so if you need to get that boat done, get it taken care of, you need to get it to either Renegade Marine or to another local dealer, get it done, because usually when the first freeze hits, none of your dealers are going to warranty that winterization because there is a chance that block could freeze and bust on you.
Yeah, that's you got to remember that. That's an expensive toy to not.
Yeah, that's about a $10,000 replacement if they forget it.
Well, I'd have to leave the country because I don't have $10,000. Hey, we appreciate you, John, and tell Sherb and Linda we said hello, and congratulations on another successful year up there.
All right, Brian, y'all be careful. Enjoy the evening, and try not to be a duck too bad because I know the water will roll off your back, but it's still coming down here in Evanston.
It's coming down here too, buddy. Get those lake levels up. They'll have to start pulling it a little harder. John Newton, check him out. RenegadeMarine.net. Give them a call up there, 259-0001. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on Southern Kentucky's Great Outdoors, ESPN 102.7, 104 The Score.
Listen each week to Tennessee Titans football on 105.3 The Point as they battle for the playoffs. Presented by Southern States of Bowling Green and Franklin. Also brought to you by Bowling Green Refrigeration, Heating and Cooling, Bank of Edmonson County, First Step Pro Statics and Orthotics, Overtime Sports Bar and Grill, Ferguson Bath Kitchen and Lighting Gallery, and Coca-Cola. It's your home for Tennessee Titans football every week in Southern Kentucky. 105.3 The Point. Tighten up.
Every room in your home, whatever it needs, United Furniture.
It's that time of year again, free furniture that is. United Furniture and Appliance is celebrating our 23rd annual free furniture and mattress event. That's right, you'll receive 28% in free furniture or bedding with any furniture or bedding purchase. Take advantage of United's store-wide savings, plus receive an additional 28% in free furniture or bedding. For instance, purchase a 4-piece bedroom group for $9.99, receive $279 in free furniture or bedding. Sofas, love seats, recliners, bedrooms, mattresses, dinettes, occasional tables, and yes, even lamps, pictures, rugs, and accessories. The possibilities are limitless. In-store financing and delivery available when you want it. Service with a smile for 72 years. United Furniture and Appliance, historic downtown Bowling Green.
United Furniture. Couldn't ask for anything more.
If your business needs to cool, chill, or freeze, or warm, heat, or cook, you know you can't afford to disappoint. That's why you call BG Refrigeration, because BG Refrigeration never disappoints. They satisfy any heating or cooling need your business may have. Factories, restaurants, malls, plants, big industrial warehouses, doesn't matter. BG Refrigeration is who you call. Commercial heating and ducts, AC maintenance and replacement, commercial refrigeration, restaurant equipment, cold storage warehouses. BG Refrigeration ensures your heating and cooling needs are met so your business doesn't suffer. Walk-in freezers, exhaust systems, pizza ovens, ice makers, whatever heats or cools. If it's restaurant related, BG Refrigeration is, by far, the best company in South Central Kentucky to service them. In fact, there are a few companies that can or will even try to do what BG Refrigeration does every day. They're the company that's called in for the big jobs that require more experience, that need to be done right the first time. Why would you trust your business's commercial heating and cooling needs to anyone else? Turn to the experts. Call BG Refrigeration at 270-782-5391, where your comfort is their concern.
The hunting in East Beverly Hills getting sorry every day. Me and Duke went as far back in the brush as you could go. The only thing we flushed out was a couple of real estate agents.
It's time to do some hunting on SOKY's Great Outdoors, brought to you by Rock Castle Shooting Center at Park Mammoth Resort, 22850 Louisville Road in Park City, Kentucky.
Welcome back. ESPN 102.7, 104 The Score up in Glasgow. Don't forget to set your clocks back this week, John. That's my favorite time of year. I love losing an hour of sleep. Don't you?
Do you? Yeah, not so much.
It's the funnest thing ever.
Yeah, not so much.
I'll tell you, one time we showed up for church, and we were never early for church. And we were there, and there wasn't a car in the parking lot, Nick. And I looked up, I was like, Mom, we're way early. And she's like, well, it's 10 o'clock. Yeah, it was one of those days where we were supposed to set the clock back. I was like, well, at least once a year we make it church on time.
Yeah, you got to spend some family time in the car together.
Totally true story. Hey, I think it's why I'm 15 minutes early for everything I do is because of that. It makes me nervous. We're going to hang out, talk some hunting. Josh Honeycutt, Real Tree Outdoors in the studio. John Kirby, same thing. Writer, talks hunting all the time on this show. And we've been doing it for a long time. But also hanging out, Nick and Nate Noble from The Rock. They're coming up at 6 with the gun show. You want to stick around for that. But jump into it, John. I mean, it's raining and it's this time of year. Some people haven't got that buck. I mean, what's going on out there?
Yeah, man, it's getting ready to kick off. To have a estrus doe right now would not be out of the question. There's absolutely some hot does around Kentucky. Obviously, the vast majority of them aren't there yet, but we're just days away from action really heating up. It's a great time to be a sportsman, and if you don't have that buck tag filled, and even if you don't have a mature buck really that you know of on your farm, not all is lost because this is the time of year that literally anything can happen. And just a good time to be in the woods, Josh. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the weather couldn't be hitting any more perfect than it is for early November. I was out Monday afternoon. I wasn't hunting Monday afternoon, but we got out and went to one of the farms and actually saw a buck bedded down with a doe. So As you mentioned, there are some does out there probably already entering estrus, but again, that's probably like 2, 3, 4%,
right?
Maybe 5%, if that. But it's going to be a good November. If you still haven't taken those vacation days or put in for your vacation days, typically and historically, the best 7 days of rut activity around here is usually November 3rd to November 9th, 10th. It's usually the best 7, 8 days. Now, that's not when the peak breeding occurs. That's when peak seeking, peak chasing, peak big buck on the landscape moving around in daylight action occurs.
Yeah, I think that gets confused a lot, Josh. You hear people talk, they want to hunt the peak of the rut, but actually the peak of the rut is not the optimum time to be chasing those deer, because you get what's called lockdown, and I'm sure most of you have heard of the lockdown phase, and that's when your mature deer, or a vast majority of your mature deer, are locked down breeding a doe, and that can go on from anywhere from 24 to 48 hours, just kind of depending. And when that's over with, that buck's going to get right back up on his feet, start looking for another estrus doe. But like you said, these next 7, 8, 10 days is going to be when you really start seeing bucks cover a lot of ground, looking for these does, and it's the best time to be in the woods, in my opinion.
For sure. I've talked to a lot of biologists, and they say that around November 15th is the peak breeding day for this part of the country. But you have a pretty, a little bit more broader of a window there. Most of those does are being bred somewhere between November 10th and November 20th, with the peak being around November 15th. So it actually lines up to where most of the time, our gun season falls during that lockdown phase.
Yep. It does, and our gun season's been consistent for as long as I can remember, and I've been hunting since I was a little kid. It's always been the second weekend of November. Always falls right around that peak breeding time, and a lot of deer get killed because of that. You think of the states north of us, just Ohio, for example. They don't have a gun season that runs concurrent with peak of the rut. Man, think about what that would do to the herd in Kentucky if we changed that a year.
Yeah, it would really improve the age structure. If you took the gun season out of the rut. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who want to keep it there, and I get that, and we're not here to debate that.
No, sure.
But yeah, that would definitely change things, no doubt. That would improve the age structure. And personally, I wouldn't be against it, maybe even alternating it every other year.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I would advocate for if there was going to be a change. Maybe do an every other year change. That way, your bow hunters get to hunt, that peak, 1 year, and then your gun hunters are hunting the next. That way, everybody wins. Everybody gets to do what they want to do, and then, but more importantly, it improves the overall deer age structure. So, if in a perfect world, I would love it if they would, alternate it every other year. That way, the gun hunters still got to hunt some good rut activity. But on the flip side, we improve the overall deer population as well.
Right.
This is Nick from the Rock Castle Gun Show, stepping in for Brian Webb. But I ask you, Josh, what if you rotate that every other year? Would you move that a week ahead, or a week behind? And what would the ramifications be on either one of those scenarios?
Well, I'm no deer biologist, but I would push it later rather than earlier, because there would probably be more bucks get killed the first week of November than the second week of November, if I had to guess, just simply because there's more bucks moving at that time and they're not locked down on does. But yeah, if there was an alternate year like that, or every other year, I would probably push it later. Maybe the third, but probably the fourth week of November.
Probably the fourth, because a lot of big deer get killed in that third weekend of November. Kind of on the backside of that lockdown phase. When a lot of your younger bucks have kind of run out of steam, because these younger bucks, a lot of them have been kind of dogging does around for a couple of weeks now, and they will run out of steam about halfway through November, and the majority of the rut activity after that second week into that third week and fourth week is your bigger mature deer. A lot of them get killed in that time frame.
Yeah, they know what's up, so they kind of conserve that energy for the final phases of estrus does there, and as you mentioned, the younger deer don't. Now, something we want to talk about real quick before we run out of time, which we still got a lot of time here left. But here's two potential scenarios that we want to pose to you. Say you don't have a mature buck on camera on a pattern right now, and you still have your vacation. Well, say you do have a good buck on a daylight pattern right now, and you still have your vacation. What's the best thing to do? Use it that first week of November and bow hunt that deer, or wait until gun season. Now, personally, if I do have a mature buck on a daylight pattern right now and he has done the same thing multiple times within the past week or so, I would personally take my vacation days that first week of November and hunt him with a bow. But that said, if you don't have that, if that's not the world you live in right now, and you don't have a mature deer or a deer that you want to target on camera and he's not doing what you want him to do during daylight, I would probably wait until Modern Firearm to target that deer and spend your vacation.
Yeah, that's pretty good advice. Yeah, and like you said, that's situational dependent, kind of depending on where your vacation falls. You already have it set aside for that week. Me being a bow hunter, I'm with you. I'd rather hunt that first 10 days of November leading up to gun season because that's some of the best action you're going to have all year. What about the folks that don't have that mature deer on a daylight pattern, or maybe even folks, Josh, that haven't seen a mature buck in some time now? What's your advice to them?
Well, that's kind of the world I'm living in right now. I had a ton of mature bucks on camera leading into the early season and even during the early season. And unfortunately, I had a bad encounter where I actually made a non-lethal hit on my top target buck. It was a big deer, and fortunately, it wasn't a lethal wound. It was a mere flesh wound. He was back to eating acorns the next day. But since then, it's really, really slowed down for me, and I have not had a mature buck on camera that gets me all that excited probably in 2.5 weeks. Now, obviously, you're limited whenever you don't don't have them on camera, but that doesn't mean they're not there. There can be instances where they're just not walking in front of your cameras. They could be, the bed to feed patterns could be different, and honestly, I kind of get sucked into putting my trail cameras in the same exact spot every single year. Now, I move them around some, but for the most part, most of my cameras are in the same spots. Well, sometimes we have to get out of that routine, and I think that's why my trail cams have suffered this season, because I've not really it's not because I haven't looked and scouted, but I really haven't moved my cameras around as much as I typically would this time of year if I haven't found a target buck. But, it can be tough if you don't have a deer that you're wanting to target, but, gun season's kind of the great equalizer.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's easy to get sucked into that whole trail cam thing and put so much stock into it. I'm guilty of it, even though I try to stay hyper aware of it. But I'm convinced there's some mature bucks out there that will avoid a trail camera. I'm convinced that they will just simply avoid it, and you won't get them. So not having mature bucks on camera, certainly, like Josh said, doesn't mean they're there. Not there, excuse me. What about kind of going back to the folks that don't have a mature deer on a pattern, or don't even have a mature deer showing up in a couple of weeks? What are some areas, if they're going to hunt this first 10 days of November or leading up to gun season, what are some areas that you would tell them to focus on? What's some advice you'd give those folks?
Well, I'll throw a few out there, and then I'll ask you the same question. But personally, this time of year, the mature deer are still hugging pretty tight to their beds. You're seeing a lot more chasing activity and a lot of 1.5, 2.5, maybe even some 3.5-year-old deer out on their feet right now. And even some of the big mature deer, if you have an estrus doe in your area. There's been reports of a lot of people knocking down ultra mature bucks right now, but most of them have been killed pretty tight to their core areas.
Yeah.
So for the next 2 or 3 days anyway, I would probably still stick to wherever you think. Obviously, we're talking about a scenario where you don't have a deer on camera, you don't know where a deer is. But if you have an area that's historically good this time of year, if it's a good quality, thick cover for mature bucks that deer have used in the past and bedded in the past, that's a pretty good play for the next 2 or 3 days. But as once we approach November 2nd, November 3rd, leading all the way up to gun season for that matter, bucks are going to be cruising.
Absolutely.
And you definitely want to be setting up between those doe bedding areas, setting up in, it sounds cliche to say, but set up in pinch points, set up in funnels. Areas that's in cover, that's still important. A lot of people think that deer just kind of go willy-nilly come rut. And they do, to a degree.
At times, yeah.
But for the most part, mature bucks are still smart even during the rut. So obviously you want to still be in cover. Now, come gun season, I advise the opposite. I pick up the 300 Win Mag and cover as much ground as you can cover.
Yeah.
Because come that time, it's not unheard of to see even the biggest mature bucks come busting across a wide open cut cornfield after a doe. So, but between now and then, I would still hug tight to cover, but definitely hunt close to doe bedding areas because these bucks, especially of a morning, are going to be nosing those does. Now, of an afternoon, you might want to get closer to the food sources and still kind of camp out on food of an afternoon, but that. From November 2nd, 3rd to November 8th, 10th, I would definitely hunt back in the cover close to known doe bedding areas of a morning, and then maybe get a little closer to the food instead of the bedding areas of an afternoon.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That was going to be my number one is these bucks really kind of start inching in on this doe bedding, kind of monitoring, trying to catch that first estrus doe. So that's great advice. Getting in between that doe bedding and the food. Also good advice, but I like to these major travel corridors that these does are using, these trails that you walk through and you're like, man, that looks like a cow path right there. I like to use those trails. Rarely do you see a big mature buck use those same trails, so I like to back off of those 60, 80, 100 yards and catch that big buck using those secondary trails, or even coming through and scent checking those primary trails that the does are using is another good bet this time of year when we're still talking up close and personal bow hunting.
Right, and generally, that's a great point. And generally, most of the time, there'll be two of those on each side. There'll be one on the left and one on the right, so to speak. And you definitely want to be camped out on the downwind side of that trail, not just for your own scent, not just for your own, purposes of not trying to spook a deer, but because that's the trail that deer's going to be on. Whenever they're paralleling those doe, big, massive, obvious trails that does and young bucks and fawns use, they're going to be on the downwind sides of those, scent checking those trails. So anytime you're hunting, and that's a great point from John. Solid advice, and definitely keep in mind the wind, and not only just because you're trying to keep deer from smelling you, but also because that's the trail that buck is going to be on. He's going to be on the downwind side of that big, massive trail you see coming out of that bedding area.
Yeah, great stuff, man. And another thing that kind of goes along the lines of that, if you've got a bunch of does that are still on a heavy feeding pattern, which they primarily are, and they're hitting these open ag fields or food plots with plenty of daylight left, you can really kind of do the same and ambush these bucks on the downwind side of those food sources that these does are using, and you can catch a buck easing through their scent checking those does out in the field. They'll do that a lot. I've seen it year in, year out. It's just a tactic that works.
Yeah, that's a great point, and something to think about, too, and I think the reason why I'm not seeing as many mature deer as I typically do this time of year, usually the last 2 weeks of October, I just see a ton of daylight activity from, 3-4+ year old deer, and I'm not this year, but the food sources have changed, and, whereas I'm usually dealing with a whole lot of corn, it's been nothing but soybean this year for most of the places that I hunt, and as most of you deer hunters out there know, a cut soybean field has very little attraction to a deer. Unless the farmer just had a terrible combine and there's a bunch of beans on the ground, which is usually not the case. It's usually much more common to find corn waste grain than it is soybean waste grain.
Yeah.
But most of the farms that I hunt this year, and I think it's going to pose a much bigger challenge for me this season and has thus far. That's why, because the corn's not there. And it's the soybeans, and the soybeans aren't standing anymore. They've already come in and pulled those out. Now, if the soybeans were still standing, it would be a different story.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a farm that I hunt that has some soybeans still left, and it's getting hit pretty hard. Like Josh said, not a whole lot of attractants to a cut soybean field unless you're kind of in one of those super, super dry pockets, which we had some around here. In that case, a lot of those beans find their way to the ground when they're being combined or even before. So there can still be some appeal on those certain fields if the conditions were just right. But anyway, anything else, Josh, that you would tell folks out there leading up to gun season if they want to get some of this really, really good bow hunting that we've got coming the next 8-9 days before the season kicks off?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a catch-22. If you're a serious bow hunter and you've got big bucks on camera and they're moving in daylight, you kind of want to kill those deer before it gets to gun season because come that time, your neighbors are obviously going to be in the woods and there's a whole lot more people out there. So if at all possible, you want to try to get that deer killed before gun, but at the same time, you don't want to just blow your farm all to heck because, what if you haven't killed that deer by opening day of modern gun? You're going to be out there with a gun probably, and if you've just obliterated your farm, you're going to have a tough time during gun season.
Absolutely. Good point there. Michael Penley just texted in that they saw 2 new bucks that they haven't seen yet this year show up on camera. That absolutely can happen, and it's not uncommon whatsoever. I think we're going to take a quick break here and come back, and we'll be right back with you here on Southern Kentucky's Great Outdoors.
Since 1983, Skag Power Equipment has built simply the best commercial-grade zero-turn lawnmowers and equipment money can buy. Take advantage of end-of-season savings on Skag zero-turn mowers at one of the Vance stores in Bowling Green or Glasgow. No matter the mowing conditions, Skag has the industry-leading cut you deserve and expect. With 0% financing offers and monthly payments available below $100 with approved credit, one of the Vance stores can find an affordable Skag that will make your grass look great. Come check out the Skag Mowers season-ending sale at one of the Vance stores. Skag Mowers are simply the best. The Vance store is here to back them up.
Although hunting to most of us is much more than just harvesting animals, why not better your deer herd's health with Big & J long-range attractant? Big & J is highly digestible, high in protein, and isn't full of preservatives. With Big & J long-range attractants, you're not only exploiting one of the few weaknesses whitetails have, their stomachs, but you're maximizing antler growth, improving overall herd health, and pulling deer from your neighbor's property. So whether your goals are to fill the freezer, kill mature bucks, or both, Big & J long-range attractants will stack the odds in your favor, all the while making your deer herd bigger and healthier.
This is Nate from Rock Castle Shooting Center. Did you know that one of the premier shooting ranges in the world is right here in South Central Kentucky? Rock Castle Shooting Center has something for everyone's recreational shooting enjoyment. From 3D archery to our brand new sporting clays course, handgun ranges full of steel to targets out to a mile. There's no better place to get some trigger time than Rock Castle Shooting Center. Non-members are welcome, and memberships start at $150 per year. We offer a fantastic range of firearms training and education opportunities from the most basic to the most advanced. Come see us, exit 48 on I-65, Park City, Kentucky. Visit rockcastleshootingcenter.com.
Rock the Boat 2019 with Nitro, Sun Tracker, and Regency at Renegade Marine and Outdoor Center. If boat dealerships were candidates, Renegade Marine's platform would sound like this. You deserve family time on a Regency. You have the right to a Nitro bass boat. Renegade Marine and Outdoor Center wants to see you on the water with a smile and a Sun Tracker. Ask not what your old boat needs for repair. Get a new pontoon with time to spare. Rock the Boat with Sun Tracker, Regency, and Nitro at Renegade Marine and Outdoor Center. 415 Commerce Drive in Litchfield. Online at renegademarine.net.
Hey, it's Nick Noble with the Rock Castle Gun Show here. We're talking about Swagger bipods. Do you want just your average barrel rest, or do you want to shoot with some swagger? Introducing the Swagger bipods. They expand your shooting zone with Swagger, the all-terrain hunting bipod. After more than 100 years, finally shooters have a bipod with patented, flexible, hyper-extending, telescoping legs that give you the agility like never before. So get rid of stiff legs and get the bipod with infinite maneuverability. Swagger, the bipod that moves.
This is Nate from Rock Castle Shooting Center. Did you know that one of the premier shooting ranges in the world is right here in South Central Kentucky? Rock Castle Shooting Center has something for everyone's recreational shooting enjoyment. From 3D archery to our brand new sporting clays course, handgun ranges full of steel to targets out to a mile. There's no better place to get some trigger time than Rock Castle Shooting Center. Non-members are welcome, and memberships start at $150 per year. We offer a fantastic range of firearms training and education opportunities from the most basic to the most advanced. Come see us, exit 48 on I-65, Park City, Kentucky. Visit rockcastleshootingcenter.com.
Welcome back, Southern Kentucky's Great Outdoors. Great time to be a sportsman or sportswoman. Great time to be a deer hunter. A lot of good hunting coming up these next 7, 8, 9 days before gun season starts. And it's a great time to be an outdoorsman, Josh. Nick, you were talking about your son. He's interning for Midwest Whitetail. And those guys are on a monster deer, and we can't say much because they're not releasing much. But how cool is it to kind of live through your son and see all these cool things he's getting to do, and how neat is that?
Well, it's what's really cool, and really he's an intern for 41 North, which is the production company that's filming for Realtree, and they do some things for Cabela's and others. But they're up there in southeast Iowa, they're chasing some big deer, and Mike Reed was down here. He killed a nice buck, 5x1 mature deer at Rock Castle. They filmed that, and he's up there with Jared Mills, and every night's a new adventure. And what's really cool about watching Grant and knowing, because I get to talk to him every night, but I also get to see it about every other day. They're producing a live vlog on YouTube on Midwest Whitetails, and it's really fun. And they've got a giant deer that they haven't even named, and they keep talking about it, and there's a lot of intrigue about this deer.
Yeah.
It's a pretty special hunt, and they're hunting some land that is really, it's all CRP with no mature trees on it. So they're having to take some guerrilla type tactics to try to get near this deer and where this deer is bedded. But it is a monster. I've seen a picture of it, and it's something special. But it's fun to vicariously live through your 22-year-old son, and he's up there filming and
doing great things.
And doing cool things.
It's probably pretty cool to be able to see his work almost on a daily basis too. That's got to be neat. Both of y'all, Josh, Nick, Nate, y'all all weigh in on this. But so not releasing much info about this deer, it's created maybe a little backlash. People are wanting to know. But I think it's really cool what they're doing. They're not just doing it for their sake. They're doing it for the landowners around them that are also hunting this deer. I think it's really cool and pretty special what they're doing up there.
Yeah, there's one of Jared's friends is there, and he's doing out of this respect for them, for the landowner and everybody else, because it's a special deer.
Right.
It's just not the right thing to do. There's a little bit of backlash, but I'd say there's probably more intrigue. Everybody is now really checking every single day to see if this big buck comes into play. And Jared has been way up front on Realtree 365. You can get a free app and go check it out, or you can follow Midwest Whitetails on YouTube and check out any of Jared's hunts. Grant films all of it, does the production and editing and everything else. And they're just having a good time. This morning they were out, and Grant's got his Iowa tag now because he's a resident of Iowa now, and he was drawn back on they needed him to come 10 more yards on a big mature whitetail this morning, and it's snowing up there. And
wow.
It got the juices flowing for us down here in Kentucky, getting ready to go out in the woods. And we've already been out in the woods, but it's getting ready to get real the next few days.
Absolutely.
Throwing this out there to you guys, we got a lot of listeners out there who aren't bow hunters and they're gun hunters. So, we've been talking about the bow hunters up until this point. What's y'all's advice for our gun guys out there who aren't going to be hitting it until November 9th?
Yeah, that's a tough question because it kind of depends on how much work they've put into it up until this point, what kind of intel they've gained, have they run trail cameras, how long have they run them, but let's just maybe say that they haven't run trail cameras and are kind of going to go in blind or maybe do some scouting in the next few days. Maybe that's something that they're going to roll the dice on. And I would get in an area, transition zone, somewhere where you can take advantage of having a rifle and cover some ground with it. Somewhere that bucks have a tendency to come cruising looking for does, which a lot of time that's on that leeward side of these ridges. So it's something I love to do is hunt leeward side of the ridges this time of year.
And if you shoot like J.D. Williams, just get a big wide open
just get
space.
outside.
Yeah, just get outside with a gun and you'll kill one. But, for sure. Something I really like to do is get in an area where you can cover, if that makes sense, but also cover a lot of wide open space, too.
Yeah.
That's generally my favorite stand locations for gun season. Get somewhere where you can cover some really good bedding, but just kind of be on the fringe of it to where you can also cover, some wide open ag fields as well or CRP fields or whatever it might be.
And somewhere where you can kind of transition back and forth, especially if you're going to hunt all day. Somewhere where you can get on your feet, maybe cover an ag field, but also cover some woods too by making just a couple of steps one way or another. What about you, Nate?
I have a totally opposite theory on the rifle hunt. I love to bow hunt. I love to deer hunt. So I actually use the same stands that I do with the rifle as I do with the bow. And a lot of my bow stands I couldn't shoot 100 yards if I wanted to.
Right.
I go to the same places. I'm after the same deer. So if I get lucky enough and they come in with a rifle, a muzzle loader or something like that, and I'm in my same stand and the right deer comes in that I'm after. I've always just hunted the same kind of places. Now, growing up out west, it's a totally different story because, there's places out there you can shoot a long way.
Right.
We're going to be talking about hunting rifles primarily on the Rock Castle Gun Show coming up right after this.
Oh, sweet.
Some folks from Weatherby are coming on, and we're going to talk about hunting rifles and all kinds of stuff, a couple segments on the Rock Castle Gun Show.
And that's excellent advice from Mr. Noble because a lot of your big mature bucks never do, even during the rut, won't, venture out into the open. So solid advice.
Absolutely, yeah. There's even bucks that I'm convinced don't even partake in the rut. They're not even looking to breed. They're just looking to survive. Those deer can be tough to hunt. So you guys, how much time we got, Garrett?
1 minute.
Gotcha. So you got Weatherby coming on. That's going to be cool.
And don't forget, you can come zero rifles up at the Rock Castle Shooting Center, the Red Barn Range.
That's
the most important
huge.
thing is being able to shoot the rifle.
Absolutely.
And we have experts. If you need help with that stuff, we have experts up there to help us help you zero rifles. But being able to shoot's a big deal, and after I do the same thing after deer season. I use my deer stands for coyote hunting too. So
perfect. I mean, we talk about how to get in close and get to where you can make a shot on a deer. I don't think sometimes we forget to talk about how important it is to be able to shoot. Nobody knows better than Nick and Nate Noble how important having confidence in your ability and your weapon is. I mean, tell us what that can do for a hunter, having confidence in his weapon.
Confidence is everything, and it's a make or break thing when you're hunting. I mean, I guide elk clients, and you'd be surprised at how bad people are with their guns.
Yeah. Let's just put it this way: some of the top shooters in the world, 3-gun shooters, Jerry Michalik, Andy, Daniel Horner, people like that, they zero their rifle every time they come to a competition because they don't know what's happened between the closet, the gun safe, and getting out to the field to go hunt a deer. You really don't know what's going to be. So knowing that you've got a confirmed zero is really a really important thing, and guns can change.
Absolutely. Great stuff, guys. We enjoyed bringing it to you. Everybody listen, I hope you guys have a safe and successful hunting season, and we will see you next Wednesday, Southern Kentucky's Great Outdoors.